Jelly Galang, I am from the Department of History of UP Diliman. I'm teaching History 151. So my students are here today. I'll be the moderator in today's event. So I'm teaching History 151. It's the modern history of East Asia. So it is composed of China, Japan, and Korea. So when Miss Dr. Kyung Min Bae invited me to co-organize this event, sabi ko, yes, let's do it so that I will no longer discuss Korean War in my class. So our event, our book launch and lecture, a short lecture this morning is very timely, especially because I think next year we'll be celebrating Philippines-Korea relations, diplomatic relations. So 75 years. No? This year. I was thinking of Philippines-China kasi next year, Philippines-China next year. So this year is 75 years. Nauna pala ang Philippines and Korea. So very timely itong discussion and I hope that we will learn a lot from this sharing of how the diary of a Korean War veteran was transformed into a book that is available to us now. Okay? So without further ado, we don't need to do the opening remarks, etc., etc. Let's go to the meat of the event. No? So let's welcome our main speaker this morning. She is the editor of this book and the granddaughter of Alfredo Cayton. Let's all welcome Ms. Genevieve C. Cayton.
Hello. Good morning, fellow ISCOs and ISCAs. I just want to correct the introduction about me. I am Dr. Genevieve C. Cayton, PhD. But my PhD means pang half day. Okay. So like today, I'm just doing a half day lecture here. I really don't know what I'm doing here because I was an average student and I almost failed high school because of math. So, hindi talaga ako mahilig mag-aral. I just like to hang out and have fun with my friends. And I didn't like studying, but this is also my first lecture for a big group of university students. So I feel so privileged to be with you all here, and so thank you very much. Kamsahamnida, Director Kim Min Bae, UP Korea Research Center, and Professor Raymond Abejo, Professor Jelly Galang, UP Diliman Department of History, and UP Arirang, and to all you students for coming here to the lecture this morning. So, before I start the lecture, I just want to say how grateful I am because 3 persons in my life made this book possible. Yung tatlong angels sa buhay ko. First is of course, my grandfather, Colonel Alfredo L. Cayton. I'm very grateful to him kasi he recorded his life in Korea for 6 months. He was in the middle of a war, pero he still found time to write his thoughts and everything that he did from 1950 to 1951. Second angel of my life, thank you to my father, retired Brigadier General Emmanuel S. Cayton, because he was the one who started the digitization and collection of my grandfather's diary in 2001, when he was the Assistant Chief of Staff for G7 Philippine Army. I really wish you could be here, but my father has advanced stage of Parkinson's and dementia. So, I'd like to thank him kasi siya yung sentimental, nostalgic member of the family. I mean, he always loved to take videos and pictures. So I think this collection is one of his best.
And lastly, to my student, Bongwon Oh, from Kyunghee University, Seoul. Sorry, I don't have a favorite child, but he's my favorite student of all time. Kasi siya yung gusto magbasa ng diary ng lolo ko. Thank you for studying Korean Contemporary University, History in University and Masters, and English with me. He wanted to read about 10th BCT and my grandfather's diary, so kaya nagawa yung book. And I also want to thank my mom and my kids. They're here, my brothers, and my family. Okay. I'm a beginner Korean learner now. Sino marunong mag-Korean dito? Can you speak Korean? No. Okay, Korean. Si sir. Okay. Okay. And for me, this is the most important Korean sentence that I can say. Please check ni ma'am kung tama. Okay. 제 할아버지는 한국 전쟁 참전용사였습니다. My grandfather was a Korean War veteran. This is the same sentence I said to my historian student during our first class, and the sentence that started my book writing adventure. Okay, next. Okay, so because my grandfather passed away in 2008, I want you all to meet him first, okay? Can you hear the sound? This was his whistle call. Okay. I'm sure he's very happy in heaven right now because you're listening to his story. He was a World War II veteran and a prisoner of war for 5 months in 1942. But he escaped the prison because, from what I know, a Japanese girl helped him escape, and that girl was his girlfriend and the daughter of a general. So, ang pogi niya kasi, di ba? Kaya, okay. Pang-international yung ano. Okay. When he went to Korea, he was 34 years old. He had a young family of 2 kids, and my grandmother was 6 months pregnant with my father. So, my father was born when he was in Korea. My lolo was in Korea. This was the first war he participated in outside of the country, just 5 years after World War II ended. So, my lolo was with the first battalion of Filipino soldiers sent to Korea in September 1950 as part of the 10th Battalion Combat Team of the Philippine Expeditionary Forces to Korea, or PEFTOC. So, he was assigned there for a year. Ang first assignment niya is adjutant, and then he became the S1 personnel officer, and then S4 supply officer. So, parang he was one of the busiest in the battalion, like parang Lalamove Grab food rider. Taga-deliver ng pagkain, parang mother and father. He was also in charge of getting gas and all supplies, and he was also in charge of funeral arrangements for all casualties. Are you wondering why he wrote everything in the diary? Kasi the way he wrote it, alam niyo yung military style, nilalagyan niya lahat ng timestamp. Time was very important to him. Recording everything was important to him. So, from reading the diary, this is what I assume, the reason why he did it. My great-grandfather was Master Sergeant Tiburcio C. Cayton, a member of Philippine Scouts, and he was a band conductor. So, in 1922, when my grandfather was only 6, his father was sent to study abroad in the U.S. Army School of Music in Washington, D.C. But unfortunately, he died after completing the course in 1924. So, right now, he is buried in Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, USA. So, maybe, I really don't know if this is the reason, pero I think my grandfather was afraid that he would die in another country, like his father. So, he wrote every day in the journal. Tapos palagi siyang nasa picture. Palagi niyang gustong sumama sa picture kasi para mapadala niya sa pamilya niya. Back home here. Then, this is a shot of my grandfather when he, I don't know who that other guy is. Siguro official photographer yon or war correspondent. Because this was also something that my great-grandfather wasn't able to do. We don't have any pictures of him because lahat kasi, I know they burned all his records in World War II. So, I think maybe that's the reason why he recorded everything. Okay, so let's watch a short video of my Lolo friend when he was interviewed by Pinoy Abroad GMA 7 in January 2006.
Nalipahagi ng panel ng Battle of Yukon si Colonel King Pagusan na ipakita ng ilas ng mga sundalong Pilipino. Mamaya mga sabi ko sa akin, hindi na ito magpapagay na pala yung pagkakasama. He was killed when he was going from Paksol of this person. Sabi niya, pwede on, may announcement. Pagkain mo, pwede on. Yun na siya ng mga.
So that I just took some minutes from that. Mahaba kasi yung video na yon. You can find it in YouTube if you want to watch the full video. Korea na, may Pusong Pinoy, full episode 42. Pinoy abroad. Okay. So, writing in the diary was my grandfather's way of showing love to his family and to the Philippines. And I think this diary book is it's a love story about love in all forms. Love for the Philippines and love for Korea, love for democracy. Also, it's also about brotherly love, and for my student and me, it's about the love for learning and teaching English. And it's also about romantic love because he often wrote letters to my grandmother. Sino may boyfriend, girlfriend? Okay. So, dapat palagi kayong kinokontak ng ano nyo, di ba? Okay. Kasi dati yung lolo ko nasa gera, sulat siya ng sulat. Okay. Okay. And then, next one is, on the book, the way I organized the book, I wrote all the cities and provinces he visited during his assignment in Korea. So, ang dami niya lang pinuntahan. With just him and the 10th DCT. Because they were there from September 19, 1950, and then they arrived in Manila to a Heroes Parade in Escolta on October 23, 1951. So now we go to the making of Alfredo's diary. So I guess all of you are curious about how this book was made. So I'm going to show you now the evolution of Alfredo's diary from 1950 to 2024. Okay, so this is the original document. It's just a steno notebook. Okay, and this is the book now. Okay, and then here. Okay, so nakita niyo naman, di ba, the original document, it's just a steno notebook in cursive text. This is the current condition of the diary. It's not readable anymore. So, if my father didn't scan it in 2001, it couldn't have been made into a book now. And then, these are all the publications. Oh, sorry. We printed since 2001. The second book, the brown one, it's the family photo book that we made. Okay. I was also the one who did the layout for that. But for this book, the pages, all of the pages of the scanned diary were not included because it was very expensive to print photo books then. So, maliliit na scanned pages lang yun. The third book, that's the first proof of this book that was printed for first edits in April 2024. So, in 2001, as G7, my father scanned the photos and diary pages, and he also encouraged my grandfather to rewrite a piece about the Battle of Yultong, published in the Sunday Times magazine in 1956. So, we made it into a family photo book. And then, the files were kept and forgotten for 23 years until January 2024. Okay. On January 8, 2024, I met my first Korean student who would eventually help start my writing adventure. Because since I started teaching English to Koreans in 2006, he was my first student who is a historian. We started reading the diary on February 5. So, because it was hard to read yung handwriting ng lolo ko. So, I copy-typed it and then started adding photos. And then we had to study it by parts. So, we finished reading it by the end of March 2024. And then, 5 days after reading the diary for the first time in class, February 10, I visited my grandfather in Libingan ng mga Bayani. So I was sitting near his grave. I opened a prologue that he wrote for the family photo book in 2001. So this is what he wrote. Recording all these on the computer will make this information available worldwide, possibly reaching and imbibing other veterans to do the same for the world to know. And then he also wrote, please share it with all the veterans of the Korean War and their families. So, after I read that, I told my mom to tell all my father's siblings that we should publish a book because this year, it's the 75th anniversary of Korea and Philippines diplomatic relations. And then next year, 75 years naman ng Korean War. So, ang ganda ng timing nung sana kung ma-publish tong book, di ba? And then around the same time, I think Battle of Yultong became viral on social media. Do you know about Battle of Yultong? Okay, mga March yun eh. So, I had the inspiration to make a book out of it, to copy, type, and organize the diary, add pictures, and write all the additional parts, cover, footnotes, and then glossary of military terms. And I started working on it, and I finished the final draft on May 21. Then I did all the work to complete the book with drafts sent to the family. Then my grandfather's second wife was happy to contribute photos and the original article from Sunday Times. And then she also told me that she and my lolo would really love to publish this diary so more people can read it. So I contacted Central Books and also I did research from PEFTOC War Museum about 10th BCP. Because I really felt that it was my duty to continue it because I'm connected to Koreans by teaching English. Okay, and then the books came out on June 5, and then we launched it on June 29 at the PEFTOC Korean War Memorial Hall. So it was live streamed on their Facebook page. Okay. Next is about one of the most significant and decisive battles of 10th BCP. So you know about Battle of Yultong. Okay. My grandfather wrote in the diary from September 13, 1950 until March 31, 1951. I don't know why he stopped writing. Maybe because he got so busy after, because na-injure siya from Japan. He was sent to Japan and he came back to Korea and he was so busy na. But he was in the Battle of Yultong on April 22, 1951. Wala lang siyang entry dun sa diary, so he wrote a separate piece for it. And this was the original piece he wrote in 1956 that was published in the Sunday Times magazine. Okay, now I will call 3 volunteers. Sino gusto magbasa ng excerpts from Filipino Valor at Yultong? Okay? Ba't lang? I just need three very brave scholars ng bayan to read. Okay. Okay. Come here please sa harap. And introduce yourself first.
Can I borrow the two copies? I need. Okay. Teka, wala. Okay. Oy, puro boys, para mga sundalo. Okay, great. Okay. So, introduce muna.
Good morning po. Ako si Aldrich Docampo, BA Linguistics student sa class ni Sir Jen.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joshua Gutierrez, BA History student also from Sir Jelly's class.
Hello, I'm Calandre Luar, first year BS Chemistry student.
Okay.
So, share na lang tayo. I will read the first part and then you can read 1 and 2 and 3. Ito na lang, no? Okay. With feelings. Okay. More than 50 years ago, our Filipino soldiers fought in one of the grimmest battles of the Korean War on the hills of Yultong, a dusty and sleepy-looking village nestled among the rocky and pine-studded North Korean mountains. Early in the morning of that fateful day, the 10th Battalion Combat Team, under Colonel Dionisio S. Ojeda, moved into the Yultong area where it was assigned a portion of the UN defense line. It covered approximately a 3-mile frontage of rugged terrain that is astride one of the principal highways, from the Nokor capital of Pyongyang to the South Korean capital of Seoul. This highway also leads to the now famous Iron Triangle, formed by the cities of Chorwon, Kumhwa, and Pyongyang.
Occupying the mountains at the right of the 10th was the Turkish Brigade. At the left was the 2nd Puerto Rican Regiment. Within the Peftok Zone, Baker Company under Paulino Sanchez occupied a hill overlooking the highway from Chorwon. Deployed to guard this highway was the reconnaissance commanded by Captain Marcos Garcia. Able Company led by Captain Anthony Concepcion occupied a high ground at the left. Occupying hilly positions between Able and Baker Company was the tankless 10th Company of Captain Conrad Yap. A little to the rear on the slopes of another hill was Charlie Company of Captain Dominador Tenazas, which was held at the Reserve Company. The field artillery battery commanded by Captain Guillermo Moreno was not in the battalion zone as it was in the general support of the 3rd U.S. Division to which the 10th was attached. As darkness approached the April 22nd, enemy scouts were observed probing along the front. Then came the night. Suddenly, pandemonium broke loose as enemy batteries opened up. From their staging positions, the SINCOM horde deluged the front, shrieking like madmen as they charged the UN defenses.
As the Chinese approached the positions, they were moved down by dense bands of interlocking fires. The succeeding waves that reached the front end slopes of the hilly operations of the 10th were blasted by booby traps laid by the men. Grenades rolled down the slopes and lobbed in showers by the men netted a gruesome toll of enemy dead piled on their fellow dead. Then the UN line broke into the Turkish sector. Badly battered, the Turks withdrew early that night, thus exposing the right flank of the Peftok Battalion. Soon, intense enemy fire was pouring into the battalion area from the high ground to the right. Distinct sound of motors from the direction of Chorwon indicated that SINCOMs were rushing in more troops into the battle area. It was past midnight, but still the fighting kept raging furiously. The pale moon and the parachuting flares showed the countryside littered with swarms of enemy dead. After hours of continuous fighting, the guns had not only become hot and the ammunition supply had gone so low, but fatigue and hunger had also lit upon our wary defenders. On the other hand, the enemy kept charging unrelentingly.
Lieutenant General James Van Fleet, then commander of the 8th U.S. Army in Korea, extolled the tank company's epic stand at Yultong when he said, "The tenacity of purpose under the most intense pressure, the courage, the faith with which the Tank Special Weapons Company achieved its long, bitterly contested stand prevented the large portion of United Nations front from collapsing. The individual and collective heroism of this valiant company reflects the highest credit in themselves, their homeland, and their armed forces of the United Nations." Also, Major General Robert S. Sewell, the commanding general of the 3rd U.S. Division to which the 10th was attached, wrote the following inspiring letter to Col Ojeda. "At a time when holding the line to permit an orderly withdrawal was the very essence of our tactics, the Philippine Expeditionary Force to Korea conducted itself admirably. Confronted with a weakening on our right flank, your command faced a numerically superior enemy, held its position, and inflicted heavy casualties. In so doing, you deprived the enemy of a penetration on our lines. You accomplished your mission in a manner calculated to add new glory to the Philippine Command. The Filipinos fought their hearts out. Likewise, the Stars and Stripes lauded the fighting Filipinos.
Okay. Today, Yultong is not just a dusty and sleepy-looking village nestled among the rocky and pine-studded North Korean mountains. Like Bataan and Corregidor, it has become hallowed in the memory of our Filipino soldiery. Okay, thank you for reading. Thank you. Okay. So, yun yung sinulat ng grandfather ko, published in the Sunday Times, and it's also here in the book. Okay. Let's watch a short video about the 10th BCP. This is what I wrote on the book about the 10th BCP and other officers and enlisted men.
In 1950, just 4 years after the Philippines gained independence on July 4, 1946, former United Nations General Assembly Philippine President Carlos P. Romulo was able to convince President Elpidio Quirino and the Senate for our country to participate in the Korean War. Republic Act 573, the Philippine Military Aid to the United Nations Act, was signed on September 7, 1950. The 10th BCP, motorized, was primarily selected because it was the only trained army unit in the AFP. In addition, the officers and troops from the 10th BCP were experienced World War II veterans and Balahap guerrillas. The Korean War was the first war the Philippines supported outside of the country. The battalion had a total of 64 officers and 1,303 enlisted men. The Philippine 1st Battalion deployed to Korea arrived in Busan after a 4-day voyage from Manila Bay on September 19, 1950. And once the winter, the coldest in many years, had given way to spring, a flood of Chinese soldiers came down from the north. The spring offensive was a force of 548,000 men that was supposed to sweep the UN forces off the peninsula. On April 23, the offensive reached the UN battle lines at Yultong. The position was being held by the Philippine 10th Battalion Combat Group, who fought alongside Turkish and Puerto Rican soldiers. But when the Chinese came over the hill in the middle of the night, their allies gave. The Filipinos were surrounded. Their communications fell, but they did not waver. They kept going. They kept shooting. Everyone participated. Cooks and clerks defended the line. They fought with everything they had. And in the morning, when the dust settled and the waves of communist forces stopped coming, they won.
Okay, sabi ni General Douglas MacArthur, di ba? Give me 10,000 Filipino soldiers and I will conquer the world. So, in the Battle of Yultong, once upon a time, our military forces beat China. So, I think we have to clap for our 10th BCT soldiers and all the Filipino soldiers of the Korean War. Most of them have passed on, but there are still some surviving members. So, at this time, can we just observe a moment of silence for all the 10th BCP soldiers killed in action during the Battle of Yultong, Korean War, and for all the PEFTOC soldiers who are no longer with us.
Thank you so much. Sino sa inyo nakapunta na sa Pep Talk War Memorial Hall? Have you been? If you want to know more about the history of Pep Talk, you can visit. It's in Port Bonifacio, and you can look for Commander Mark Cordeno. He's the senior shrine curator, so he can give you a guided tour. If you want to know about the surviving members of 10th BCP, if you want to do some research also, yung Pep Talk Veterans Office is also in the same building. Okay. Okay. The next part is highlights. Okay. Just to show some highlights, here are some of the important entries in the diary. Because my lolo recorded daily activity of the 10th BCP. They went up north to Pyongyang when they crossed the 38th parallel for the first time on November 1, 1950 at 500 hours. And then the next destination they went to is Pyongyang, and they settled there on November 3, 1950 at 1600 hours. Okay. The Filipino soldiers reached Korea in the dead of autumn and winter, mentally and physically unprepared to experience such extreme cold at sub-zero temperatures. Because my lolo was in charge of supplies, he was able to secure their winter clothing and footwear from the U.S. troops. But he received the gear almost 3 months after they arrived on December 1, 1950. Can you imagine that? Ang lamig-lamig, wala silang masuot na no? Okay. In fact, the first 10th BCP commander, Colonel Mariano Azurin, had an argument with General Walton Walker about the lack of necessary protective gear for the Filipino troops. So, because of this argument, he was relieved of command and he left Korea on November 27, 1950 at 1000 hours, according to the diary entry. And on the right, you can see that's the article published on the New York Times about the incident. Colonel Azurin fought hard for his troops' morale and welfare after 90 enlisted men had frostbite, recorded on the diary by my grandfather on November 15, 1950, because they were not provided with winter wear. Colonel Azurin also sent a telegram to President Quirino for the 10th Battalion's recall back to the Philippines. Because at that time, the temperature in Korea was negative 30 degrees Celsius. And then, another reason for that is they were fragmented into several units. Pinaghiwalay sila. Instead of being under Colonel Azurin, they were transferred under the United States 187th Regimental Combat Team. So, because of these grievances, most of the 10th soldiers my grandfather talked to wanted to go home. And he recorded this in the diary on November 16, 1950. Okay, so, but they were not, they didn't go home. They stayed there until 1 year after they were replaced by 20th BCP. So here they are trying to live normal lives in the midst of war in a foreign land. They watched movies, held parties, and sang songs together. Then they also spent Christmas and New Year 1951 there in a cold, unknown foreign land. Okay. Then on Valentine's Day 1951, February 14, my grandfather had a terrible jeep accident. Then he was sent for medical procedures and to recover in Japan. So he went back to Korea after 1 month. Okay. Let's go to the diary portion. Okay. Let's read some excerpts from the diary. I will call my 2 kids to read. Okay. So they will read the departure from Manila and arrival in Busan. Come here. Okay, Marcela.
September September 15, 1950. Returned 2:45 hours to camp from San Juan. Didn't have time to sleep. Interrupted 400 hours on first HNDF but left camp around 600 hours and proceeded to military port of Manila by way of Highway 54 Baclaran, Dewey Boulevard. Took time to load the men. Received phone calls from Camp Murphy twice. Sorry, the Three Musketeers of the PNRC were hanggang PIL lamang, up to the PIL only. No clearance from SCAP can go. Generals Castañeda, Duque, Rizaldo Ramos, Secretary of ND, saw us off. Was last officer to go up on account of the S1. Right field decks and boxes, left port at 11:05 hours. The USNS Sylvester Antolac is a very commodious, assigned to cabin number 59. My companions in the cabin are Captain J. Villanueva, Captain P. de las Alas, Captain F. Javier, Lieutenant V. Del Pilar, Lieutenant G. Manasan, Lieutenant C. Navarro, Lieutenant D. Tenazas, Lieutenant J. Artiaga, Lieutenant P. Crisostomo, Lieutenant P. Blanco, Lieutenant M. Bungas, Lieutenant Liwanag, Lieutenant G. Guzman, Lieutenant J. Di Malanta, Lieutenant A. Santos, Lieutenant G. Limhoco, Lieutenant N. Garcia, Lieutenant P. Luis Jr., Lieutenant H. Garijuez, Lieutenant A. Concepcion. Had lunch in hell. I mean, the officers' mess hall was located somewhere at the center of the ship, and there seems to be no cooling system. But the chow, sapak, punch, colored waiters served us. Had a nice siesta. Went up deck and saw the reassuring presence of our PNP sub-chaser escorts. Movie on deck, trapped, but a doggone shower stopped it.
So, explain ko lang yung binasa niya. Okay. So, this is on the day that they departed from Manila. He said, my lolo came from San Juan. So, he passed, kasi sa Port of Manila sila umalis by Highway 54, which is EDSA. And he also passed Dewey Boulevard, is I think Rojas Boulevard. And then, he received telephone calls from Camp Murphy, Camp Aguinaldo. And then he said, the Three Musketeers, I don't know sino itong mga to, of the PNRC. PNRC is Philippine National Red Cross, where hanggang pier lamang. So, hindi sila nakasama dun sa ship. Baka hindi sila, kasi sabi niya, no clearance from SCAP, which is Supreme Commander of Allied Powers. No can go. Then, several generals saw them off. General Castañeda, Duque, Lizardo, Ramos, then the Secretary of National Defense. Okay? Then, he was the last officer to go up on the account of the S1. And they left the port at 11:05 in the morning. Then, this is the ship that they wrote, yung USNS Sylvester Antolac. Sabi niya, ang laki daw, di ba? Tapos sinulat niya lahat yung kasama niya sa cabin. Lahat ng yung mga officers na yan. And then, they had lunch. It was so, mainit daw dun sa, sa ship. But the food was really good and some colored waiters served us. So, the first activity that they did was they watched a movie on the deck called Trap. And then, my grandfather saw PNP sub-chaser escorts. PNP is yung mga Philippine Naval Patrol. So I think sinamahan sila ng mga maliliit na ship until the South China Sea, siguro. Okay. But there was a shower, umulan, so hindi sila natuloy manood. Okay. So they sailed on this ship for 4 days, and after 4 days, on September 19, 1950, they arrived in Busan. So I will call my son now to read that part, September 19, 1950. Manolo.
September 19, 1950. arrived around 8:30 hours at Busan. A Korean army band came to meet us at Chaldo of colored band. South Korean officials and their ladies gave bouquets, went with Captain Villanueva to the second base post office to arrange for postal service for a battalion. Should have gone down the boat, but a snafu occurred, and the HQ and service company, which was first to go down, returned on board. We were supposed to pass the night in the ship to send hubs with activity.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. So, on the day that they arrived, maikli lang yung sinulat ng lolo ko on that September 19. He said they arrived around 8:30 hours at Busan, and then a Korean army band came to meet them, and another colored band named Chad Alto. Some South Korean officials and their ladies gave them flowers. So the first thing that he did when he arrived in Korea was he went to Captain Villanueva to the second base post office to arrange for the letters for their battalion. And then something happened on this day. They were supposed to go down the ship, but a snafu occurred. I don't know what happened. Siguro hindi pa ready yung transportation nila. Because after they arrived to Korea, in Busan, they will move to their first post in Miryang. So, they weren't able to go down the ship, so they went back to the ship and slept there again for one night. I think at that time, Busan was, parang yung Busan na lang ang during the war, it was yung natitirang territory ng South at this time. So, siguro kaya nagkagulo yung battalion. So, they moved to Miryang the following day, September 20, 1950. Okay. So, tapos na yung lecture. That's it. I hope you learned something today. And then, I want to let you guys know that I'm writing another book about how I co-authored my grandfather's diary. I'm going to include also there my experience as English teacher for Koreans and my military lineage and about my father and our family. So, if you want to get my contact details also about this book, I have a digital card here. You can pass it around and tap it on your phone. O diba, high-tech. I don't know how it works, but if you want to know about the books, you can send me, basta when you get my details, you can save it and then send me a message with your name and email, okay? Oh, the working title of my next book is, wala pa akong maisip na title. Sorry. For Love, How I Co-Authored My Grandfather's 1950 Korean War Diary. Okay, so manasubang naman sumida.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much.
For that very interactive na sharing. Dapat pala nagsuot din ako ng patig, no? Parang may uniform pala tayo. Anyway, so after hearing Ms. Jen's presentation, let's call on Professor Raymond Abejo. He is our Korea expert at the Department of History. So he will share his thoughts on the book and also maybe perhaps the broader context of the Korean War. Bakit may Korean War? Bakit na nagpadala ng TEFTO? Bakit nandun yung mga Chinese soldiers? Why were the Turkish soldiers, the Puerto Rican soldiers were there? No? So let's welcome Professor Raymond Abejo.
Maraming salamat po. Hindi rin ako nasabihan na may fatigue uniform po tayo ngayon. Joke lang. Yun. Maraming salamat po at karangalan po na makasama po kayo dito sa harap. Yung anak po, apo, at descendant po ng isang Korean War veteran. At para din sa atin, isang karangalan din na marinig yung mga naging karanasan ng isang Filipino na nagsilbi sa Korean War. Sabi nga, yung konteksto, siguro unahin natin sa konteksto, mabilis lang na mababasa natin sa mga libro, yung importansya nung naging partisipasyon ng Pilipinas dito sa Korean War. Tayo yung isa sa 16 na bansa na tumugon sa panawagan ng UN na tumulong sa South Korea. 4 years pa lang tayo nagiging malaya after 1940, World War II. Pagkatapos ay bumabangon pa lang tayo mula sa digmaan, ay nagkaroon ng digmaan sa Korea. So official na narrative ay lumusog yung North Korea sa South Korea. Pero sinabi ko yung official kasi siyempre bilang mga history majors ay may iba't ibang perspective dun sa pagsusulat na to. Magandang basahin natin yung libro na to kasi mula dun sa perspective din ng isang militar yung pagsusulat ng kanilang karanasan. Pero balik ako dun sa konteksto, isa siya, pwede nating tingnan din na mapolitika din yung desisyon ng Pilipinas para sumama at mag-participate sa Korean War. At yung presidente ng panahon na yun ay si Pedro Quirino, kaya nagkaroon ng mga usapin din sa Kongreso, sa Senado, pero sinuportahan natin agad yung resolution ng UN nang pumutok noong June 25, 1950 yung digmaan sa Korea. At yung panahon na yun, si Carlos P. Romulo, yung nagsisilbing General Assembly President, kaya kailangan din natin tumugon kagad. So una ay may agam-agam siguro dahil sa, sinabi rin naman hindi siguro, sinabi na rin dun sa mga official na histories na meron din tayong sariling problema ng panahon na yun, maliban dun sa pagbangon mula sa digmaan ay may Hope Rebellion. At sinasabi doon na parang kailangan natin mag-concentrate, tapos kung magpapadala tayo ng sundalo ay magkakaroon na naman ng problema dito sa Pilipinas, mapapawasan. Pero sa huli ay pinadala natin yung pinakamagaling, yung motorized na batalyon, di ba? Yung 10th BCT, hindi lang basta-basta na yung pagpapadala natin doon. Pinili yung mga volunteers na ito. Una, nagpadala tayo ng humanitarian aid kasi yun yung unang parang position ng government. At matapos yung debate, nagdesisyon na kailangan talaga ay direkta yung pagtulong natin sa Korea. Yun siguro konteksto. Punta naman ako sa libro. Para sa mga, ito ay isang importanteng primary source. Siguro kailangan natin tingnan na primary source siya, katulad ng sharing, Ma'am Genevieve, ay mga pangalan ng mga sundalong nandun. Tapos yung pictures na talagang kinuha na ni Kaiton. Yung una pala nung binasa ko to ay hindi ako familiar dun sa surname. Taga Ilocos po ba? Marami po bang taga Ilocos na Kaiton? Okay. At karamihan din po ng mga sundalo ay mga, kasi unang basa ko Kaiton. Kaiton pala. Tapos maraming Ilocano rin po sa 10th BCT. Tama po ba?
I think so.
Oo, maraming Ilocano rin. Siguro isang magandang tingnan din yun, yung binubuo ng 1,700 plus, di ba po yung 10th BCT. Maraming Ilocano, pero kailangan nating maganda ring emphasize na yung 10th BCT ay veterano ng World War II. Tapos sila rin ay nagsisimula din after ng war nga, syempre may problema ng Hope Rebellion, ay sila din ay mga sumasabak dun sa bagong hamon ng Hope Rebellion. Kaya marami din sa sumusunod na mga battalions ay mga sundalo rin na humaharap dun sa Hope Rebellion. Kaya kung yung parallelism ng pagpapadala sa Korea ay merong Hope Rebellion dito na laban ng Pilipinas sa rebellion ng komunismong grupo sa Pilipinas, pagpunta din nila doon, dala-dala rin nila yun. Kaya, hindi tulad ng isang historical na primary source, ay yung diary na to ay mas intimate. Kasi sinabi nga ni Ma'am Genevieve na ang yung diary na to ay personal na para i-record yung ginagawa niya dun sa Korea. Tapos, para rin din maalala siya ng pamilya niya in case may mangyari sa kanya. Diba? Parang yung sinabi niya yung sa lolo, yung sa tatay niya po na namatay noong 1920s. Kaya parang idea, in case na may mangyari sa kanya, at least meron mapapasa sila pagbalik ng Pilipinas, yung personal accounts niya. Kaya yun yung siguro yung konteksto naman nung primary source ito. Kaya maliban dun sa kwento ng digmaan mismo, ay yung personal na accounts, yung intimate na na bahagi ng experience ng isang Filipino soldiers. Kaya kung mababasa ninyo dun, ay maliban dun sa nangyayari na trabaho niya. Kasi maganda yung mga sinasabi niya kasi siguro pag free time na niya, dun na siya nagsusulat na pumunta siya sa isang lugar para i-check yung supplies, bumalik siya sa ganito, inutusan siya ng ganito. Kaya parang everyday life yung mababasa ninyo dun. Parang hindi siya yung big picture na history ng Korean War, kundi yung intimate na nangyayari at emotional, psychological din kasi mayroon yung kwento na halimbawa ay kikwento niya nagising, pagkagising niya, kinento niya yung nanaginip siya tungkol sa kanyang asawa at sa mga anak niya. Kaya magandang tingnan yun, hindi sa parang big picture ng mga histories. Kaya sa mga estudyante rin ng linguistics, kasi meron dong pagpapanggit ng mga parang mga terms na hindi na natin ginagamit yun, parang chow-chow. Tapos yung idea, mga terms na ordinarily ngayon hindi ginagamit, na pwede natin pag-aralan sa historical linguistics. Sa students of history, kita nga natin dito yung resilience nila. Tapos sa pagsusulat din ng history ng mga diary na importante rin dito. Tapos sinabi nga niya ay hanggang nga po ay March lang yung kanyang diary. Tapos hindi na natuloy, wala nang parte nung medyo marami ng digmaan na nasasabak na yung mga Filipino soldiers. Yung tanong ay bakit? Sabi ni Ma'am kanina, siguro busy na sila. O busy na si Sir Alfredo, kaya hindi na siya nakapagsulat. Kaya yung mga sulat niya, ng mga entries ng diary niya ay bago siya umalis, pagdating niya doon, tapos ng mga unang buwan hanggang nung na-aksidente yung jeep niya, tapos nung na-aksidente yung jeep niya kasi nagkaroon siya ng injury sa ilong, na-admit siya sa hospital sa Pusan, pero sabi sa kanya ng doctor, kailangan niya ng mas magandang mga facilities. Kaya pinadala siya sa Japan kasi merong, syempre, mas magandang mga facilities dito sa Korea na naharap sa digmaan, tapos maraming mga sundalo din nasusugatan. Kaya pinadala siya sa Japan, tapos kinento niya pa yung experiences niya nung nasa Japan siya, tapos yung pakikisalamuha niya sa Japan, yung pag-ikot niya sa Japan, tapos yung pagsakay niya ng train, pabalik ng pagsakay niya ng train papunta doon sa port ng barko na maghahatid ulit sa kanya sa Korea. Tapos yun yung mga dulo ng kanyang diary. Kaya imagine niyo yung ganong scenario nung nagsusulat siya. Siguro pwede natin maisip din na pumunta pag naging student, stage student pala tayo, pumunta sa ibang bansa. Parang excited kayo pagdating ninyo dun sa unang lugar. Ang dami ninyong picture na kukunan. Kunwari, yung kinakain ninyo, kinukwento rin niya dun eh. Yung kinakain niyo, pipicturean ninyo, tapos kung sino yung una ninyo, pipicturean nyo. Pero pagkasunod-sunod, parang normal na sa inyo yung galaw ng mga sumunod na araw. Kaya parang hindi ka na masyadong eager magkwento sa diary. Parang yun din yung naisip ko kung bakit nawala na yun. Maliban dun sa busy na si Sir, kasi siya nga yung S1, tapos yung sa supply officer pa, sa pa yung adjutant. Kaya tapos pupunta na sila dun sa mismong sentro ng bakbakan. Kaya maliban dun, baka meron ding isang aspekto na ng ganun, na normal na yung nangyayari sa kanya, wala na yung novelty, kaya hindi na siya nakapagkwento. Pero hindi pa rin naputol yung pakikipagsulatan niya, yung pagpapadala niya ng letters, di ba? Kaya maganda yung parte na iyon. Kaya siguro panghuli, para may panahon kayo magtanong, ay ano siya, yung diary na to, yung libro na to ay lived experience ng isang tao na nasa gitna ng isang mahalaking kaganapan. Kaya yun yung dapat nating isipin, personal, intimate, kaya yung mga kwento niya. Tapos last na lang na point din ay cross-cultural ng mga pag-unawa niya dun sa kanyang karanasan. Meron siyang, dalawa na lang siguro yung punto dun mula dun sa cross-cultural na dimension. Meron siyang naging, hindi ko lang alam kung ginagawa pa ito ngayon panahon na ito, pero dati kasi, na makikita rin natin sa libro niya, ay yung mga officers ay nagkakaroon ng parang boy o yung parang katulong na lalaki, pero Korean na bata, yung naging boy niya. Siguro may allowance din yun. Pero yung interactions niya dun sa batang yun, binigyan niya ng pangalan dito sa Yangsu, ay kinento niya, binibigyan niya ng regalo, tapos minamasahe daw siya pagpagod siya. Yun yung parang may mga experience siya doon. Tapos minsan, kasama niya pag lumilipat siya, parang siya yung naghahanda doon sa higaan niya, yung personal effects. Tapos, pag mayroong mga batang babae doon, tinutokso nila yung batang to na Koreano doon sa mga batang yun. Tapos kung ano yung reaction ng batang yun. Yun ay magandang parte ng kanyang personal experiences doon. At cross-cultural dimension na experience sa isang Filipino soldier na nasa Korea. Cross-cultural dimension din ng diary ay yung kanyang description sa Korea. Nakaiba siyempre sa kilala nating Korea ngayon. Pero meron siyang mga parte na namamangha siya dun sa pagdating niya dun sa mga big cities sa Seoul halimbawa. Sabi niya ang ganda, may mga buildings na tapos kinukumpara niya dito sa Philippines. Tapos nung dumating naman siya sa Japan, sinabi niya na nakarating siya sa Ginza. Ano ba yung pronunciation? Ginza. Sabi niya, eskolta ng Japan naman yun. Kaya yung references niya ay yung kung ano yung experience niya dito sa Philippines, experiences niya habang nandun siya sa digmaan, na para maintindihan din siguro ng mga taong hindi nakapunta sa Korea o hindi nakapunta sa Japan. Sabi niya, ito yung pagkain. May mga kwento pa siya dun kung paano nila, magkano yung binayaran nila. Tapos happy-happy sila dun. Yun lang po, siguro ay kung pwede po kung magtanong. Tapos bago po, pagtatanong po ako dun sa ating author, siguro bilang pagtatapos yung tanong, maganda na sinabi niya po yung magiging plano, magsusulat po siya ng pangalawang libro, di ba? Yung idea siguro ng tanong na lang, nakalimutan ko tuloy, ay yung bali, meron po ba kayong, dalawa na lang po yung tanong, isip ko bakit po ba merong tatlong parte or divisions yung diary? Tapos pangalawa, dun sa, kasi napaka-importante rin po na kayo po yung, sabi nga ninyo ay army brat kayo. At siguro meron kayong personal na connections dun sa PEFTOC veterans. O existing, kasi meron na lang po 100 plus 140s plus na veterans na nabubuhay ngayon. May contacts po ba kayo sa kanila? Kasi nabanggit po ni Sir doon na sana, ay sinasabi niya na malamang yung iba ay meron ding diaries, diba? At meron na rin few na mga na-publish ng ilang veterans, pero leaders sila nung iba po. Meron po ba kayong attempts na makita kung meron po ba silang diaries or kahit mga short na mga records ng narratives sila? At may pagtatangka po bang isama ito or maging future project din? Yun lang po yung dalawang questions. Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat this day, Sir Jerry at sa UPKRC sa Department of Social Science and Linguistics. Yun lang po.
Okay.
Sige po. Now we can open the floor for questions. Inunahan may 2 questions na si Sir Raymond. Siguro magdagdag lang ako ng very broad context na kasi si Sir Raymond mas nag-focus siya sa Philippines-Korea connection. Para sa East Asian class ko naman, para lang maipasok natin. Korea was a colony of Japan from 1910 up to 1945. Kailangan yun yung mahalagang context. No? So 1945, natalo ang Japan. So there was a vacuum, power vacuum. From 1910 to 1941, Korea was under Japan. But 1945, who would lead Korea? Kasi wala na eh. I mean, wala na yung Japan. Talo na ang Japan. May dalawang maglalaban dyan. You have Russia, communist socialist, and you have the United States. Yeah? So, during the time that Korea was still part of Japan, as colony of Japan, meron ka ng 2 groups in a way, no, ng mga Koreans na nag-iisip what will happen after Japan leaves Korea. So, the first group would be those students who studied in Russia and China. Mga communist socialist itong mga ito. Another group would go to the United States, like si Syngman Rhee, for instance. Tama ba? So, merong dalawang power. You have the socialist communist, and you have the United States and the United Nations. In the context of the Philippines, we were part of the United States. Di ba nagkaroon lang tayo ng independence 1946? So whatever the United States decided to do, join tayo dyan. So nung lumabas ang Japan, natalo ang Japan, kinakabahan ng US. Kasi Communist China was there. 1949 ay nandiyan na si Mao Zedong. That was the establishment of the People's Republic of China. The US was very, very cautious na baka magkaroon ng domino effect. So they had to do something. So meron kang support from Russia and China. Sino susuportahan nila? North Korea. And then meron support naman ng US, United Nations sa South Korea. At tayo bilang former part ng US, join tayo through the PEFTOC. Nag-gets nyo ba yung context? Kaya nandoon yung bakit siya dadalhin, for instance, bakit si Colonel Kaiton dadalhin sa Japan for medical attention? Because nang natalo ang Japan sa World War II, inoccupy naman ng US ang Japan. So dadalhin yung mga UN forces, PEFTOC, doon sa Japan para mag-recuperate. So that's the context. Okay, at least nagawa ko na yung papel ko. Okay, so we still have 15 minutes. So we have 2 questions. Maybe we can 3 more siguro. Tapos we can give Ma'am Jen time to answer the questions. Siguro, can I have 3 questions, 2 or 3 plus yung 2 questions to Sir Raymond? Anyone from my class? Yung class ko ay very fun to. Active, participative. Tris, come on. Questions? Questions? Wala? O sige, mamaya siguro. Kay si Miss Jen pag yung dalawang questions.
Question was about why did I divide it into 3 parts. Kasi parang para sa akin, may mga parts ng diary na parang cliffhanger eh. Kaya hinati ko siya doon. The first part was, parang may yung part 1, merong pinaimbestiga sa kanyang murder case na accused sa mga Pilipino. So pinutol ko siya doon. Parang medyo exciting siyang basahin. And then, kasi pag binuo mo siyang basahin mo lahat yung diary and parang hindi siya masyadong enjoyable basahin. So, yun lang naman yun. Wala namang ibang reason kung bakit ko siya. Yung parang exciting lang siyang basahin. And then, a second question. Ano nga yun?
Contacts with other descendants or
yes.
surviving.
With 10th BCT, I don't know the exact number, pero kasi sila yung pinakamatanda na officers, no? So I think parang 2 na lang yata yung surviving from the 10th.
Collections from
sa namin, yung group namin, yung 10th BCT descendants, may ginagawa silang project, yung
compilation ng mga stories ng mga father nila. So, pero as far as I know, yun lang ang alam ko. Sa ibang DCT, hindi ko alam eh. And then I think very rare nga yung literature about Pefto, especially 10th DCT. Oh, yung sila. I don't know if there's another soldier who wrote a diary during that time. Kasi my grandfather was an officer, so meron siyang time magsulat, di ba? If he was an enlisted man, siguro mahirapan siyang magsulat eh, kung nandun siya sa gera. So, I don't know kung merong diary pa na iba. But, one very interesting officer na siguro pwede nyung kuhanan ng information, yung anak ni Bonnie Serrano. Madami siyang mga pictures na I don't think na ina-publish pa yon. So, ano pa kaya? Marami siyang kasi yung father niya, rin yun eh, maraming medals I think, si Bonnie Serrano. So,
thank you, Ms. Jen. Okay, Ami, questions? Ami and the other guys. Ami, you can use the... Okay, so we have four. Okay,
Hello.
Si Vito. Okay, go on.
So since most of us, since most of us here are history majors, I thought we might be able to learn from some of your experiences while transcribing your grandmother's diary po. Especially since a lot of us are going to be working with archival sources pretty regularly. So what I wanted to ask is if there were any diary entries that you had difficulty placing into context, and how were you able to overcome challenges like that?
How many months did I work on it? I started transcribing it February, and then I finished the final draft ng May. Wala naman akong nahirapan na part. Medyo mahirap lang basahin yung handwriting niya. Pero meron mga entries doon na hindi ko maintindihan anong ibig sabihin. Like yung parang mga references niya for some names that, hindi ko alam eh. And then, yung mga ang challenging pala, yung military terms. Yung mga ibang acronyms doon, hindi ko alam kung ano yung ibig sabihin. So, pero enjoy siyang basahin. I was very surprised na nagawa ko siya in such a short time. Siguro dahil I wanted to finish it na kasi para mabasa na ng mga tao.
Thank you. Okay, yung guys sa likod, please. We still have 10 minutes, so huwag na kayo kakabahan na mali sa next class.
Hello, I was the speaker earlier. So, I'm writing a reflection paper, and and one question that was a prompt question was what is the relevance of the book, the diary, in relation to the contemporary, this modern times?
Well, until now, Korea is still at war with North Korea, di ba? Wala pa namang peace. So, I think, yun siguro yung pinaka-relevant siya sa modern time. And, yung popularity of K-dramas and K-pop, it's hanggang ngayon what I know is, di ba, kaya nagsimula yung diplomatic relations ng Korea and Philippines. It's because we joined the Korean War. So, I think doon nagsimula yun eh. So, siguro, I don't know how to. Yung hanggang ngayon, Filipinos are very fond of everything Korean, di ba? So, that would not be possible if Korea was, if lost the war with North. And, kasi nga, wala masyadong literature, wala masyadong books about PEFTOC from that time. So, I guess that's it.
May dadagdag po si Sir Raymond. Very specific on the book. Very specific on the...
Yung relevance, siguro tama naman yung sinabi ni Ma'am na yung importansya ng diplomatic relations natin. At walang yun yung kailangan natin emphasize. Walang masyadong naisulat tungkol sa PEFTOC. Kaya yung libro na to ay isang malaking kontribusyon dun sa kawalan ng literature para dun sa PEFTOC. At isang paraan din para i-honor natin yung sacrifices ng mga soldiers na Filipino at ng iba pang soldiers, siyempre, na nagsakripisyo, hindi man sila namatay doon o namatay sila, ay nagsakripisyo sila. Kaya, to give honor doon sa kanilang panahon, pawis at buhay, ay mahalaga yung libro na ito at yun yung relevance niya. Patuloy nating aralin, kilalanin, basahin yung pangalan nila. Yung simple po na pagsama ninyo doon sa pangalan, yung list ng mga sundalo ay isang paraan na rin para i-honor sila. Kasi hindi sila mawawala sa memory ng tao ngayon. Parang kahit sino pumunta sa library, binuksan nila, ay, nandito pala si isang soldier na nagsimple. May pangalan lang niya. Mabasa lang siya, yung pangalan niya ay binibigyan na natin sila ng honor. Yun lang po siguro yung pwede ko idagdag. Salamat doon. Magandang tanong.
Thank you. Vito, I'm raising your hand. And then there's another one. Okay, that's the last question. Last one.
Hello po, ako po si Vito, under Sir Jerry's class. So, first of all, before my question, I think very commendable when your father was able to write a diary because alam ko pong, I don't know experience of course, but I couldn't imagine having to write your experiences from warfare. So, of course, for other people, it's hard to talk about it, it's traumatic. So, ayun po. With that, I'm curious lang po, i-mention kanina, yung account po ng grandfather niyo on the Battle of Yultong was much later on. So, I'm curious, siguro, April 22, tapos the battle itself. And I'm curious lang po, ano po yung, if you could remember, yung first entry po niya after the battle, siguro. And did he talk about it, or parang he only talked about it later on in his diary?
Wala na siyang nasulat even before that. The last entry in the diary was March 31, 1951. So, yun nga, hindi ko alam kung bakit he stopped writing. Kasi siguro, I don't know yung situation na nun. But, after yung 1956 na article, that's what he wrote, published noon about Battle of Yultong. And then, kinukwento lang niya sa amin when buhay pa siya, yung mga nangyari sa kanila noong, yes.
Mami, yes, Mami. Go, Mami.
Sorry na pagdat.
Mami, di ka naka-uniform.
Pareho kayo ni Sir ng color.
Let's add.
Napaka-ganda ng tanong mo kasi parang na-internalize mo talaga yung trauma. Kaya, well, it took the Lolo Fred, years bago nyo nasulat yung article sa Manila Times, Sunday Times. 1956 na yun right? Bumalik sila 1951. He couldn't write it because it was so traumatic. He had to be prodded pa to write it. And then yun na nga yung many years after, inano pa siya nung husband ko nga, si General Emmanuel Gayton, to again revisit and And think about it, and like, it was so hard for him. But he did it. He did it. And salamat for recognizing na gano'n talaga kakaawat ng ating mga veterano. And then, we should really treasure what they did. Kasi kung hindi nga, napakaiba ng mundo natin ngayon. Kung hindi nanalo. Hindi nanalo, pero at least na-stop. Na-stop yung war na yan. Wala tayong mga K-drama, K-pop. We're just making light.
Akong trabaho, nagtuturo ako ng Korean. So, wala akong career.
So, maraming maiiba, and just to, very important to think about the past and the sacrifices that these men did for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Last question. Yes, please.
Hello po. I'm an international studies student from FEU, and I'm studying geopolitics for research for a reflection paper. I would like to ask you, sir, considering the proximity of Japan and the Philippines and the occupation of the U.S. in those countries, do you think that the geography of East Asia and the Philippines contributed largely to the success of the war of the U.S. in the Korean War?
Ako yung sasagot? Okay.
151 daw.
151. Geopolitics. Yes and no. Yes, because the United States was already here. I mean, here meaning the Philippines, and Korea, and Japan. At least 1940s, 1950s. So they were in a advantageous position in terms of geography. But aside from geography, we also need to emphasize the fact that the United States had the military capabilities. The United States had the backing of other countries, especially those countries who were part of the United Nations. So ibig sabihin, what I'm trying to point out is we need to understand the success or whatever of the United States in the Korean War, not only in the geopolitical context, but also taking into consideration other factors like military capability, the support of other allies, and also the kalaban, the enemies, meaning the Chinese and the Russians. So there are many factors that you need to consider, but definitely geography was one. Okay, with that, we can end our discussion. I request Ms. Jen and Sir Raymond, the certificate of appreciation is presented to Ms. Genevieve C. Caiton for serving as a guest speaker at the 2024 UP KRC Book Talk, Alfredo's Diary Reminiscence of a Korean War Veteran, held at the Palma Hall, University of the Philippines, Quezon City, Philippines, on this 29th October 2024, signed by Kyungmin Be, Director of the UP Korea Center, and Associate Professor Ruel Pagunsan, Chair of the Department of History, UP Diliman. Ms. Be, can you? And also, this certificate of appreciation is given to Sir Raymond Abejo for serving as a discussant at the 2024 UP KRC Book Talk, Alfredo's Diary Reminiscence of a Korean War.
Binigay ko sa sarili ko.
Dapat tikas pahinga.
Yung Bona and then Mike. Sir?
Okay.
And then Sir.